Well, there we go. There's the reward for 2 days of rain. It's day 3 and I'm up in the mountains, or I will be. Thought I'd give you an insight into what I've learned over riding up in the mountains. Now, I'm going to aim to do about 190 k's today, about 4,500 meters of climbing, sort of over two hills and a couple of big mountains. So there's people out there better qualified to explain, the physiology of it. I think the major thing that I've learned, very obvious, is relax. It's not a race. And I think the challenge is, some of us, when we first hit that initial hill, you kind of race up it. Now look, if you're a lifer, your body's already got a limit anyway. It's not going to let you race up a hill. But if you're joining a tour, whether it's coming up a mountain or a small hill, I have seen a lot of people go off really hard. That first day, the adrenaline's pumping and they race off. Now, if you're an experienced bike rider, you know what to do. You can get to the end. But for those of us that are a bit of a novice, you go hard and then you kind of suffer. So I've just climbed Toowoomba Gap. It's about a 6-7 kilometre climb. Halfway up here, I'm feeling good. Start to think, I wonder what my Strava time is up here. Think, right, I'll go hard. And I just literally had to rein myself in, knowing that I've got the rest of the day and a couple of big climbs ahead of me. So the other challenge is, if you don't do that, particularly if you're backing up, by day 2 or day 3, you're kind of spent. So you just got to pace yourself. It's actually a bit dull, you just ride at tempo. You just want to keep going. There's nothing glamorous about it, but it is actually one of the most rewarding things, I think, on tour, of being able to climb these big mountains. So the views you get, and like I say, I'm heading off up falls now, and I'll see how I go today, whether the weather stays with me, see if I can do the big ride. I think I said in my last video that can be a bit dull riding up the hills. Well, what I meant by that was you haven't got crowds of people cheering you on, you're not out of the saddles, you just got to grind away, but certainly the views are not dull. So I've just made it up to Falls Creek, you can see it all behind me. And that was the first big climb I ever did, about 5-6 years ago, I think. I came down, before I rode with the tour in 2013, I came down into a race out of Falls called the Three Peaks, and that was the year where they actually changed the course. Where you come up, normally I'm about to take us down, but we came up the front of Falls, and that was probably the first big climb I ever did. And I got round. It was a 230k day. The last 30k was up Falls, and then that was in March. And then I went over to France 2013, I think it was July, and the next big hill I climbed was Ventoux. So, we're not all privileged enough to have a set of mountains on our doorstep. So I was thinking on the way up, what advice is it? I don't train on mountains normally. And I think the difference is, for me, big rides. I mean, all the advice you get from the Loop is go out and do some big rides, and I would just echo that. And what I tend to do is do them in a really small group, either me or with somebody else. So I'm literally spending 8, 9, 10 hours having to pedal, having to work. I'm not sitting in a bunch, I'm not drafting. Because whether that's on the flat or up hills, the reality is it's the same when you're climbing as well. So a lot of those loops, a lot of those long rides, just grinding away, because that's really what you got to do, and the rewards are worth it. Anyway, I'm heading off over there now to what's called the back of Falls, and that's a serious climb. So let's go and have a look at that. Beautiful down here. I'm at my turnaround point. I've ridden about 95 k's today, climbed about 2,300 meters, and I'm at a place called WTF Corner, and I'll show you it in a minute. Just come down the back of Falls. So the Three Peaks race I mentioned before, the traditional route, which is I've done a couple of times, is great. You head out down Falls over Hotham, and you kind of loop back in through actually this road here behind me. And what's interesting is you get here and you've ridden 200 k's, and the reason it's called WTF, because it's is that there. Now I'm not sure that will actually do it justice, but basically there's a climb there which is about a 9 kilometre climb with an average of 9%, and that's an average, so there's parts of it that are like 12, 13, and you literally come down this valley and you hit that climb, and I don't know if that shows it's steep or not. So I'm about to go back up there. Well, firstly, they've renamed it, haven't they? Way to Falls. I'm not sure I agree with that. Secondly, I've just ridden 9Ks, so what was a second for you has been about, I don't know, probably about an hour of my life. Hard work, but good. You know, I've ridden up there 8 times, I've worked out, and every time I felt a little bit nervous and a little bit apprehensive when I've gone up it. And maybe that's another lesson or another top tip is when you're training, push yourself, do things that you don't think you should do or could do, and you know, when you can't do them, go back and do them again. And I think for me, that's probably something I've always done, whether it's a hill, a time, a distance. But you know, the training and what you put into training is going to be repaid in France. It doesn't matter if you're doing 1 leg or 20 legs, 21. The more effort you can put in beforehand, the better you're going to be. So. Go. 7.5 hours later, I'm back. I've just descended Falls, 25 k's descent, and then a ride up here, the last climb of the day, Toowoomba Gap again, and the whole way I'm just thinking, France, this is good for France. But my job is not done because I have to go off down there now, 20 k's, and it's a descent. And I've done all this chat today and haven't even talked about descending. I've got one basic rule for descending. Get down in one piece. There's this phrase, you know, ride within yourself. I do that, plus a little bit more. I am not a fast descender. I marvel at the ones that just descend like a stone. Don't have the capacity and don't have the ability. So I ride within myself. There's no point in putting myself in danger, not ready for the next day. So I'm going to rug up and do the last 20k home and then probably have a sleep.